Growing up, every Sunday dinner at my parents' house felt like a promise that no matter what happened in life, we would always have each other. My dad, Richard, my mom, Diane, my older brother Derek, and me, Curtis, all gathered around the same table in our family home just outside Chicago. I believed that blood was thicker than water and that family would never turn their backs on one another. I was wrong. Everything changed when Derek brought home a woman named Heather. Before I continue, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. If this story resonates with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. What I am about to tell you still haunts me to this day. So let me take you back to where it all began. 2 years before everything fell apart, my brother Derek introduced Heather to our family during one of our Sunday dinners. She was 26 years old, worked at a real estate company downtown, and had this way of lighting up a room the moment she walked in. Her smile was warm, her laugh was contagious, and she knew exactly what to say to make everyone feel comfortable. My parents fell in love with her almost instantly. My mom kept saying how lucky Derek was, and my dad would pat him on the back like he had just won the lottery. 8 months after they started dating, Derek and Heather got married at this beautiful old church on the outskirts of the city. The ceremony was everything you would expect from a fairy tale wedding. White flowers everywhere, a string quartet playing soft melodies, and Heather walking down the aisle looking like she had stepped out of a magazine. I stood next to my brother as his best man, watching him wipe tears from his eyes as he said his vows. I remember thinking how happy I was for him, how glad I was that he found someone who seemed to love him so completely. For the first 6 months of their marriage, everything seemed perfect. Derek and Heather bought a house about 15 minutes from my parents' place, and our Sunday dinners continued like clockwork. Heather fit right in. She would help my mom in the kitchen, laugh at my dad's terrible jokes, and always made sure everyone's glass was full. I genuinely liked her. I thought she was good for my brother. But then I started noticing things. It was small at first. When Derek was not in the room, Heather would stand a little too close to me when we talked. She would touch my arm when she laughed at something I said, letting her hand linger just a second longer than necessary. I brushed it off. Maybe she was just a touchy person. Maybe I was reading too much into it. Then came my mom's birthday party. We were all at my parents' house celebrating with cake and wine when Heather cornered me in the hallway. She looked me up and down and said, "You know, Curtis, you are actually more handsome than Derek. Has anyone ever told you that?" The way she said it, with this look in her eyes that I could not quite place, made my stomach turn. I laughed it off and quickly excused myself, but the comment stayed with me. I told myself I was overthinking it. Heather was my brother's wife. She loved him. There was no way she meant anything by it. Then one Sunday evening, everything became impossible to ignore. I had gone into the kitchen to grab a glass of water while everyone else was in the living room watching some movie Derek had picked out. I heard footsteps behind me and turned to find Heather standing in the doorway. Before I could say anything, she closed the kitchen door behind her. "Curtis," she said, her voice low and different from how she usually spoke. "I need to tell you something." I set my glass down on the counter. "What is it?" She took a step closer. "I have been attracted to you since the first time I met you. I have tried to ignore it, but I cannot anymore." I felt like someone had dumped ice water over my head. Heather, what are you talking about? You are married to my brother. Derek does not have to know, she said, reaching out to touch my chest. It can be our secret. I stepped back so fast I nearly knocked over a chair. No, absolutely not. I would never do that to Derek. You need to forget whatever this is. For a moment, something flickered in her eyes. Anger, maybe, or embarrassment. But then she smoothed her expression into something calm, almost bored. Okay, she said with a shrug. Forget I said anything? And just like that, she turned around and walked out of the kitchen like nothing had happened. I stood there for a long time, my heart pounding, trying to process what had just occurred. Part of me wanted to run into the living room and tell Derek everything. But another part of me hesitated. What if he did not believe me? What if it destroyed his marriage? What if I was wrong about what just happened? In the end, I convinced myself that it was a one-time thing. Heather had probably had too much wine. She made a mistake, and now she was embarrassed. If I said something, it would only cause pain for everyone. So I kept my mouth shut. That decision would come back to haunt me. 4 months later, during another Sunday dinner, Heather made an announcement that sent my parents into absolute joy. She was pregnant. My mom burst into tears and hugged Heather so tight I thought she might squeeze the life out of her. My dad shook Derek's hand and pulled him into a bear hug, saying how proud he was. Derek could not stop smiling. He was going to be a father. This was going to be the first grandchild in our family. I was happy for them. Truly. I had pushed the kitchen incident to the back of my mind and convinced myself it was ancient history. Heather had not tried anything since then. Maybe she really had just made a stupid mistake. But 1 month after the pregnancy announcement, my entire world collapsed. We were all sitting around the dinner table at my parents' house. The food was getting cold because Heather had started crying out of nowhere. Big, heaving sobs that made her whole body shake. My mom rushed to her side. Honey, what is wrong? Is it the baby? Are you okay? Heather shook her head, tears streaming down her face. Then she looked directly at me, and the words that came out of her mouth changed everything. I cannot keep this secret anymore, she said, her voice trembling. The baby is not Derek's. It is Curtis's. The room went completely silent. I could hear the ticking of the clock on the wall, the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. Everyone was frozen, staring at me. What? The word came out of my mouth before I even realized I was speaking. That is insane. That is a complete lie. But Heather kept talking, her words tumbling out between sobs. She told this elaborate story about how I had been pursuing her for months, how I would send her flirtatious texts, how I would show up at her house when Derek was at work. She said that one night, when Derek was away on a business trip, I came over and we were together. Every single word was a lie, a complete fabrication. But she delivered it with such conviction, such raw emotion, that I could see my family believing her right before my eyes. Curtis. My brother's voice cut through the chaos. He was standing now, his face red, his hands balled into fists. Tell me she is lying. Tell me right now. She is lying, Derek. I swear on my life. None of that ever happened. I stood up too, my chair scraping against the floor. She came on to me in the kitchen a few months ago. I rejected her. I told her no, because you are my brother, and I would never betray you. She is twisting everything around. Heather let out a wail. He is lying, He is trying to make me look like the bad guy because he knows he got caught. I cannot believe he would do this to me, to us." My mom was holding Heather, stroking her hair, whispering words of comfort. She looked at me with an expression I had never seen before: disappointment, disgust. "How could you, Curtis?" she said. "Your own brother." "Mom, I did not do anything. You have to believe me." But she just shook her head and turned back to Heather. My dad stood up from his seat, his jaw tight. "I never thought I would say this to my own son," he said slowly, each word landing like a punch. "But I am ashamed of you. Dad, please listen to me. I am telling the truth." He held up his hand. "I do not want to hear it. Not until you are ready to take responsibility for what you have done." Derek had not said another word. He just stared at me with hollow eyes, like he was looking at a stranger. Finally, he spoke. "Get out." "Derek, come on. You know me. You know I would never—" "I said get out," he screamed. "You are not my brother anymore. I never want to see your face again." I looked around the room, searching for a single ally, a single person who might believe me. But all I saw were faces twisted with anger and betrayal. Even my own mother would not meet my eyes. So I left. I walked out of that house into the cold night air, and I did not look back. The first few weeks after that dinner were the darkest of my life. I went back to my apartment and sat in the dark for what felt like days. I replayed the scene over and over in my head, trying to figure out how everything had gone so wrong so fast. I called my parents dozens of times. They never picked up. I left voicemails begging them to just let me explain, to give me a chance to prove my innocence. Nothing. I texted Derek every single day for a week. Long messages pouring out my heart, swearing on everything sacred that I had never touched Heather. Eventually, I got a notification that he had blocked my number. My mom sent me one text. Just one. It said, "Do not contact us until you are ready to take responsibility for what you did." I must have read that message 100 times, each reading more painful than the last. Take responsibility for what I did. But I had not done anything. How could I apologize for something I did not do? The news spread through our extended family like wildfire. Aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone heard some version of the story. And of course, the version they heard was Heather's version. I became the villain overnight. The brother who betrayed his own blood. The son who broke his parents' hearts. My Aunt Linda, who had always been like a second mother to me, sent me a Facebook message that read, "I always knew there was something off about you. Your poor brother. Your poor family. Shame on you." I did not even bother responding. Thanksgiving came around, and for the first time in 28 years, I was not at my family's table. I sat alone in my apartment with a microwave turkey dinner from the convenience store down the street, watching football on mute because I could not stand the silence, but also could not focus on anything. Christmas was worse. I spent the entire day in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering how my life had fallen apart so completely. No calls, no texts, no cards. It was like I had been erased from existence. The isolation started affecting everything. My job as a software engineer, which I had always excelled at, began to suffer. I could not concentrate. I would sit at my desk for hours and accomplish nothing. My manager pulled me aside a few times to ask if everything was okay. I just nodded and said I was dealing with some personal stuff. I stopped eating properly. Food had no taste anymore. I dropped 15 pounds in 3 months without even trying. My clothes hung off my frame. I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror one morning and barely recognized the person staring back at me. Sleep became impossible. I would lie awake until 3 or 4 in the morning, my mind racing through every possible scenario. What if I had told Derek about the kitchen incident right away? What if I had confronted Heather before she had a chance to spin her lies? What if, what if, what if? The only person who stood by me through all of this was Marcus. We had been best friends since our freshman year of college, and he knew me better than almost anyone. When I finally broke down and told him what happened, he did not hesitate for a second. "That is complete garbage," he said. "I know you, Curtis. You would never do something like that. Your family is wrong, and we are going to prove it." Marcus became my lifeline. He would show up at my apartment unannounced with bags of groceries, refusing to leave until I ate something. He dragged me out for walks around the neighborhood when I had not left my apartment in days. He sat with me in silence when I could not find the words to express what I was feeling. One night, we were sitting on my couch, watching some mindless show on television, when Marcus turned to me with a serious expression. "Have you thought about what happens when the baby is born?" he asked. I shook my head. "I try not to think about it." "Well, you should, because that baby is going to prove everything. When it is born, you demand a DNA test. That is the only way to clear your name once and for all." I had thought about it, of course, but the idea of waiting that long, of enduring months more of this nightmare, felt unbearable. "What if they refuse?" I asked. Marcus shrugged. "Then you get a lawyer and make them. You have every right to defend yourself against a false accusation like this." It was the first time in months that I felt something other than despair. It was small, just a tiny flicker, but it was there. Hope. 7 months. That is how long I waited. 7 months of silence, of isolation, of being treated like a ghost by my own family. 7 months of watching from the outside as life went on without me. I found out about the birth through my cousin's Instagram post. A photo of Derek holding a tiny baby girl wrapped in a pink blanket. The caption read, "Welcome to the world, baby Emma. Uncle Derek's heart is so full." The comments were filled with heart emojis and congratulations. My parents were in the next photo, beaming with pride as they held their first grandchild. I stared at that picture for a long time. Part of me felt the familiar ache of being excluded, of missing out on a moment that should have included me. But another part of me felt something else entirely. Determination. It was time to fight back. The next morning, I called a family law attorney named Mr. Patterson. I had found his name online and read through dozens of reviews praising his work on complicated family disputes. I explained my situation to him over the phone, and he agreed to meet with me that afternoon. Mr. Patterson was in his 50s, with graying hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. He listened to my story without interrupting, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, he set down his pen and looked at me. "Mr. Curtis, you have every right to demand a DNA test. If you are being falsely accused of fathering this child, the test will prove it beyond any doubt." "What if they refuse to cooperate?" I asked. "Then we pursue legal action. If the family continues to make these accusations without proof, you could sue for defamation and emotional distress. In my experience, once people realize there are legal consequences, they tend to cooperate." That same week, Mr. Patterson sent a formal letter to Derek and Heather. The letter was straightforward. It demanded a DNA test to determine paternity and stated that if they did not comply within 30 days, I would pursue legal action in civil court. 2 days later, I received a phone call. The number on my screen was one I had not seen in almost a year. Derek. I answered, my heart pounding. Hello. Are you serious right now? Derek's voice was sharp with anger. You really want to drag this family through court? Have you no shame? I took a deep breath, willing myself to stay calm. I have nothing to be ashamed of, Derek. I am innocent, and the DNA test will prove it. If you are so sure the baby is mine, then why are you afraid of the test? There was a long pause on the other end. I could hear Derek breathing, could practically feel him wrestling with what to say next. Then the line went dead. Over the next few days, my parents tried their own approach. My mom called crying, asking me why I was doing this to the family. Had they not suffered enough? My dad called too, his voice gruff, telling me to drop this nonsense and just admit what I had done. I said the same thing to both of them. You chose to believe a lie without listening to my side. I am not doing this to hurt anyone. I am doing this to clear my name. 2 weeks after the letter was sent, Derek agreed to the DNA test. Mr. Patterson told me that Derek was worried about the public scandal if this went to court. Better to settle it quietly. The test was conducted at an independent laboratory with representatives from both sides present. I provided my sample. A technician carefully swabbed little Emma's cheek while she slept in her carrier. The whole process took less than 30 minutes, but it felt like the most significant half hour of my life. 7 days. That is how long we had to wait for the results. 7 days that stretched into what felt like an eternity. I could not eat. I could barely sleep. I paced my apartment like a caged animal, checking my phone every few minutes. On the 7th day, I drove to Mr. Patterson's office. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely grip the steering wheel. When I walked into his conference room, he was already there, holding a sealed envelope. Are you ready? He asked. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. He opened the envelope, pulled out the document inside, and read it silently. Then a small smile crossed his face. Probability of paternity? He read aloud, 0%. Curtis is excluded as the biological father. 0%. I closed my eyes and felt tears streaming down my face. Not tears of sadness this time. Tears of relief. Tears of vindication. After all those months of suffering of being called a liar and a traitor, the truth was finally there in black and white. Mr. Patterson sent a copy of the results to Derek immediately. I was not there when Derek confronted Heather, but I heard about it later. Apparently, she tried to deny it. At first, tried to claim the test was somehow wrong. But Derek was done believing her lies. Eventually, she broke down and confessed everything. She had been having an affair with a coworker named Jason for over a year. When she found out she was pregnant, she panicked. She knew the baby might not be Derek's, and she knew that if the truth came out, her perfect life would crumble. So she looked for someone to blame. And she remembered that night in the kitchen. She remembered how I had rejected her, how I knew her secret. She decided to turn that knowledge against me. She thought it was the perfect plan. Who would believe me over a crying pregnant woman who would take my side against their own daughter-in-law? She was almost right. Almost. Within days of the confession, Heather and Derek separated. I heard she moved back in with her parents while they worked out the divorce. I did not feel any joy about that. I did not feel vindicated or triumphant. I just felt tired. My phone started blowing up with messages from family members. My dad called his voice, shaking, saying he was sorry and asking if we could talk. My mom sent text after text, each one more apologetic than the last. Derek sent me a long email late one night, pouring out his regret and shame for how he had treated me. I read every single message, but I did not respond. Not yet. I needed time. For 2 months after the DNA results came back, I did not speak to my family. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I needed to process everything that had happened. I needed to figure out who I was after spending almost a year being defined by a lie. I started going back to the gym. I focused on my work. I reconnected with friends I had pushed away during the darkest months. Marcus and I grabbed dinner every week, and slowly I started to feel like myself again. One evening, Marcus and I were sitting at our usual booth at a diner near my apartment. He was halfway through a burger when he asked, "Have you thought about what you are going to do about your family?" I had been thinking about it constantly. I keep going back and forth, I admitted. Part of me never wants to see them again. They abandoned me when I needed them most. But another part of me misses them, Marcus finished. I nodded. Yeah, I do. Marcus set down his burger and looked at me seriously. Here is the thing, man. You do not owe them anything. After what they put you through, no one would blame you for cutting them off forever. But I also know you. You are not the kind of person who holds on to anger. It will eat you up inside. He was right. As furious as I was at my family, I knew that carrying that resentment forever would only hurt me. Forgiving them was not about letting them off the hook. It was about freeing myself. A few days later, I sent my parents a text. Just a simple message saying I was willing to meet and talk. They responded within minutes, asking if they could come to my apartment that Sunday. When they arrived, they looked older than I remembered. My mom's eyes were red and puffy. My dad's shoulders were hunched in a way I had never seen before. Derek stood behind them, unable to meet my gaze. My mom spoke first. Curtis, we failed you. We should have listened. We should have believed you. There is no excuse for what we did. My dad added, You are our son. We should have stood by you no matter what. I am ashamed of myself. Then Derek stepped forward. His voice cracked as he spoke. I was supposed to protect you. That is what big brothers do. Instead, I turned my back on you when you needed me most. I do not know how to make this right, but I will spend the rest of my life trying if you let me. I looked at each of them. My family. The people who had raised me, who had shaped who I am. The people who had also abandoned me based on nothing but lies. I spent almost a year being treated like a criminal by my own family. I said slowly. I lost sleep. I lost weight. I lost my sense of who I am. All because none of you stopped for a second to think that maybe I was telling the truth. My mom started crying again. My dad stared at the floor. I am not going to pretend everything is okay, I continued. It is not, but I also do not want to spend the rest of my life being angry. So here is what I am willing to do. We can start over, but slowly. Trust has to be rebuilt, and that is going to take time. They all nodded. They understood. They did not have any right to ask for more. Over the following months, my family and I slowly began to repair what had been broken. The Sunday dinners resumed, though they felt different now. There was a carefulness to our interactions, an awareness of how fragile things had become. But there was also a new appreciation. We did not take each other for granted anymore. Derek and I started talking more. He told me about the divorce proceedings, about how Heather had tried to fight for custody, but lost because of the lies she had told. He was raising Emma with the help of my parents now. The little girl, who had been at the center of so much pain, was innocent in all of this, and Derek was determined to give her a good life. One afternoon, Derek and I were sitting on my parents' back porch, watching the sun go down. "I hope you find peace," I told him, "despite everything I really do." He looked at me with tears in his eyes. "I do not deserve a brother like you." I thought about that for a moment. Maybe not, but you have got one anyway. As for Heather, I made a conscious decision to let go of any hatred I felt toward her, not because she deserved forgiveness, but because I refused to let her actions control my emotions any longer. Holding on to that anger would only give her power over me, and she had already taken enough. Looking back on everything, I learned some hard truths. I learned that family does not automatically mean loyalty. Blood does not guarantee that someone will stand by you when things get hard. But I also learned that people can make terrible mistakes and still find their way back. Forgiveness is not about forgetting. It is about choosing not to let the past dictate your future. I learned that my worth as a person does not depend on whether others believe me. For almost a year, my entire family thought I was capable of the worst kind of betrayal. But their belief did not make it true. I knew who I was, and ultimately, the truth came out. Most importantly, I learned that sometimes you have to fight for yourself. If I had simply accepted my family's judgment, if I had given up and walked away, the lie would have stood forever. But I chose to take action. I demanded proof. And that choice changed everything. If you are going through something similar, if someone has wronged you and no one believes you, please hear me. Do not give up. Fight for your truth. Because at the end of the day, you are the only one who has to live with yourself, and you deserve to live with a clear conscience. As for me, I am still healing. Some days are harder than others. There are moments when a memory will surface, some cruel word or cold look from those dark months, and the pain comes rushing back. But then I remind myself of how far I have come. I wake up every morning knowing that I did not let a lie define who I am, and that is enough. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever been falsely accused of something by someone close to you? How did you handle it? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might help someone else who is going through the same thing. If this story touched you or made you think, please give it a like and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you have not already subscribed to this channel, so you do not miss more stories like this one. Thank you for watching and for being part of this community. I wish you strength in your struggles, peace in your heart, and the courage to always stand up for your truth. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you in the next one.